I'm Dayna Wilson. I'm the host and the founder. We are coming up next month on our 8th year anniversary. I've aged in dog years, I know, but it's all good. It's all good. It's been super fun, and I so enjoy engaging, educating, empowering all of you with information, with the truth, with the facts. You know, we've had some tough topics we've covered here, and then we've had some lighter ones, so we try to mix it up a little bit. But on your evaluations, we will ask you to fill those out. You'll have some time after we're through with our Q&A, and then before we get into your question and answer period at the end. So save your questions till the end if you would, but I read those evaluations. So if you have topics for next year that you think is pertinent for boomers and seniors, living options, or just things that you want to learn more about, let me know, and we'll try to get a panel together with local, seasoned, vetted experts that you can trust. So I'm a seniors real estate specialist. I just came back from a week in Reno, and we were masterminding about seminars, and there was about 20 of us that do these types of education series around the nation. So it was really fun to hear what they're doing and share best practices and things like that. So we may be making a few little tweaks along the way. We're always open to your suggestions as well. That's what brought us back to the Lafayette Library, because you voted that you liked this venue better. So we're back, we listen. So now I passed my test, and I am a certified senior downsizing coach. So if you ever have a consultation, I'll be coaching you. I won't be telling you what to do, but I'll be helping you come to those decisions yourself. It's kind of fun. So without further ado, a couple little quick housekeeping items. Please, as we videotape these every month, we're really behind in this, but we're going to be getting all the past videos on the YouTube soon. But do turn off your phones if you would, please, please, please. I'd say just turn them off, because sometimes you push silence and we still get all your fun little ringy-dingies and such. There you go. Speak of the devil. Who did that? If we're in our Keller Williams real estate meetings and a phone goes off, you owe $20 to Keller Williams Cares. So let's not have to start that. Okay, restrooms at the end of the hall. Feel free to get up. If you need to take a call, just get up and maybe take it in the hall. That'd be great. Next month, the topic is always one of the most popular, which is simplify and downsize, living with less stuff. So you know you've got too much stuff. You know you do. We all do. So we'll learn from some experts about how to deal with that. So that's next June. And remember, we're taking a break in July. So if you come here in July, you're going to be all by your lonesome. Just saying. But maybe if other people come, you guys can go to lunch or something. Okay, so let's get going with today's topic. So we're here talking about aligning your wealth planning with your values and how you do that in a very thoughtful way. We're going to focus on legal aspects of legacy planning, including innovative tools beyond traditional documentation, ways to incorporate values into estate plans, preventing family conflicts, and creating ethical wills. We're also going to center our discussion on financial strategies that align with personal values, lifetime giving approaches, tax efficiency, and preparing future generations to manage inherited wealth responsibly. And we're going to touch on how life experiences inform legacy planning decisions and the importance of evolving one's legacy plan over time. So my goal for this seminar is to spark meaningful discussion that helps you discover how to weave your core values and unique life experiences into your unique legacy plans, while covering practical aspects like tax minimization, philanthropy planning, and next generation engagement. So let's get rocking and rolling. And I'm going to ask Yuki to start by introducing herself and telling us who she is and who she's with.
Hi everyone, my name is Yuki Ku. I'm an attorney and I specialize in legacy.
No, I'm just going to say, so you don't have to move forward. You can move it forward.
I specialize in legacy design and implementation for families. You know how money can turn the best siblings to enemies, especially for families that are passing down not just liquid assets. You know, money, you can divide it easily, but imagine that you're passing down an operating business. You're passing down a complex asset portfolio with real estate and investments in state, out of state. It gets really complex. And that type of situations can really turn very good family into never talk to each other again. So I specialize in working with them, with the family, to envision what true legacy looks like and then design the strategies around it and implement it.
Are you hearing her okay?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, could you maybe move the mic up a little bit more? Yeah, perfect. You can almost not talk too loud. Okay, well, thank you. And then the name of your company, did you mention that?
The firm that I work at is called Roots and Wings Legal.
Perfect, thank you. Angela.
Hi. Okay. Is this good? I'm pretty loud. I'm Italian. So I'm Angela Wright with Wright Wealth Management. I am a certified financial planner and a fiduciary. I've been doing this for 23 years. And, you know, I typically would design somebody's investment portfolio, help them manage it, come up with an income plan for their retirement, not pay too much taxes while we're doing that. And after about 10 years of doing this, I started asking myself, why? Like, what is it all for? You know, how does this money actually serve our lives? So it was this sort of relentless pursuit of just growing our assets without ever asking why or even thinking about that. And it's great to have a pot of money, but it's even better to have a pot of money with a vision to steward it. So that's what we'll talk about today. Thanks for having me back.
And Angela, briefly, what are the array of services you provide?
Yes, so currently providing holistic financial planning, which means managing your investment portfolio, ensuring that your distributions come out on time, that you get your RMDs, coming up with scenarios and plans for other things that you want to do in your life. So that's where the financial planning comes in. Hey, I'd really like to gift to pause. How can I do that while still providing for my kids? Or, gosh, I'm paying way too much taxes and now Medicare is hitting me with the IRMA. What do I do? So all of the little questions that come up in your life, I'm there to help you handle them.
Yuki, array of services you provide.
So I help families with complex assets think about how do we keep the family together when these assets need to go to the next generation. So I help them plan it and implement it with legal structures so that the family stays together.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to start with Angela and ask a question that I get asked often, which is what causes estate transfers to fail and how can I be one of the successful families?
Yes. There's a lot of buzz about this right now, and studies that were done in 2005 and again in 2012 and also conventional wisdom tell us that 70% of estates will fail to transfer to the first generation. So 3/4 of you something will go wrong. And 90% fail to transfer to the second generation. Here in the States, we call it shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. But this is a ubiquitous thing around the world. In Italy, it's stables to stars to stables again. And there's sayings for it, you know, all over England. It's clogs to clogs in 3 generations. And so what does a failure mean? Well, that might look like you lose some of your assets to taxes, or your heirs have to sell an asset at under market value because they can't figure out how to manage it together. Or the relationships in your family are fractured during the transition. So that's a failure. And the causes of these failures have been studied a lot. There are 4 main causes. There are document failures, right? We just did the plan wrong. There are unprepared heirs, a lack of vision or mission, what are we on, 3? And poor communication. Interestingly, document failures only account for 5% of these failures. So Yuki is doing her job really, really well. All of the legal and financial and tax structures are in place. The number one most cited cause for the failure is poor communication within the family. Poor communication. So we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yuki, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Yes, I fully agree with what Angela said. Legal documents are just documents. They don't do anything. If you create documents and never talk to your kids about it, they're not going to do much. So communication is really key, and we're going to talk a lot about it today.
Thank you. Okay, Yuki, many seniors aren't familiar with ethical wills or legacy letters. Could you explain to us how these complement traditional legal documents and how you help clients create them?
Sure. Have you guys seen the Lion King? By show of hands, you know which cartoon I'm talking about. So there is a scene in the Lion King where Mufasa said to Simba, "Where the light touches is the Pride Land. It belongs to you, and there's a cycle of life." That conversation that Mufasa was telling Simba how to live life, what values are, how do you manage the kingdom, that's basically what legacy letters, what ethical will is. You are passing on what's important to you, to your kids. How do you manage whatever you're leaving behind? Legacy, in essence, is not wealth transfer. Legacy, in essence, is the continuation of your values and the shared mission that is transferred to the next generation. So with that stewardship mindset, if you think of it as, I am just passing on how to manage these assets that I have, you put that into the legacy will. You are helping your kids understand the context of how you want that legacy to look like. That's what legacy letter or ethical will is.
I love that. I love that. Is anyone here hearing that for the first time today? Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm seeing people shaking their head, yes. All right, Yuki, beyond traditional wills and trusts with innovative legal tools, what innovative legal tools help clients ensure their personal values, stories, and wisdom become part of their legacy?
So the legacy letter is really important because that's not legal document saying, I want you to have this car and I want you to have this house. It's more about, this is what I stand for. This is why it matters to me. All the stories and values go behind it is on the legacy letter. That's number one thing that is, I encourage people to write. Another thing, it could be a great activity to do with your family is to really identify the vision for yourself, for your legacy, what our family stands for as in the vision for your legacy. Another thing you can talk with your kids about is the mission, what my family's mission is. And those vision, mission, and values together will be part of what we call a family constitution. These are going to be the pillars of a family constitution. The family constitution is a governance document for how your family will act together. If you think about, governance is a term that is a sort of a legal term. But what governance is really means is the glue to make your documents work. Think of our country. When our country was formed, there was the Declaration of Independence that says we're not part of England anymore, we're ourselves. But without the Constitution, we don't know how this country is supposed to act. The Constitution of your family is what governs how your family people, all the family members you have, will act. A family constitution is a quasi-legal tool that we can use in the legacy context.
Nice. Thank you. So, but how do you help clients identify all of this and articulate their core values so that they can be meaningfully integrated into their plans?
So before we start with any legal documentation, The first step we do with all of our clients is we envision what a successful legacy look like for you. Say in 30 years, if you are not here in 30 years, when you look at your family in your future, how does it look like? What is your best case scenario? That helps us see that's your legacy vision. With that vision, that helps you develop the family constitution, the family vision, the family values, and family mission.
This is an aside, but I'm just thinking about this. Can you do this for those of us that don't have millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars?
So you don't have to have millions and millions of dollars. So you could have a house and some cash, and then you have 3 kids from 2 different families, from 2 different marriages. If you imagine 20 years later, after you're gone, do you still see them together? If you see them together, you walk backwards. How do you make sure that they can be together? That's the vision that we need to be able to see, then we can help you design that. Because if you have families, you have kids from different families, you have grandkids from different families, that's a very difficult situation to pass on the assets. And how do you make sure that they stay together when you're not here? If that is your vision, we need to be able to design your plan to be able to carry that out.
Angela, what do you want to add to that question?
I'll just continue with this. Do we want to take questions during or wait till the end? Okay. So just to kind of further this example of we've got a blended family with 3 kids, how might you incorporate their values into the conversation? Because what we know about human behavior is, can't hear? Is this, oh, they can't hear you.
Can hear me? Oh.
Okay. Oh, Dayna.
What?
It's Dayna.
Me? Okay, sorry.
Okay, so human behavior, we want our children and grandchildren to accept this ethical will or this family constitution. And what we know is that if people get to help build things, that they will own them a lot more, right? So we can get the kids, and when I say kids, I mean everybody from like someone who can read to your 60-year-old son, right? It's all of them. You could do a values exercise with them. And this is something you can print online or you can buy these little cards. It's called a values assessment. And each card has a value on it. Family, relationships, ambition, health, yada, yada. Everybody goes through an exercise where they arrange their cards and you start eliminating the things that don't matter to you. So you end up with maybe 5 of your core values. And imagine going around the table with your kids and your grandkids and I hold up a value and I explain what that means to me. Just the juice that you get from that conversation and the things you'll discover about your kids and grandkids are really interesting. But then this adds to the quilt of your family constitution, because when we can include everybody's values in that conversation, they'll be a lot more connected to the Constitution and willing to follow it.
Awesome, thanks. Yuki, what legal structures have you found most effective in preventing family conflict while ensuring a client's wishes and values are honored after they've gone?
So, legal documents, legal structure that are essential in the Bay Area, if you have any assets passing down, if you want to avoid probate, is at least a revocable living trust structure and a thought-out distribution scheme. So distribution, when we say distribution, we're talking about how the assets will be given out. There's so many different ways to give it out. You can simply say, I have 3 kids and they each get 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But you could also say, I want to provide for my kids and my grandkids. And I wanted to stay in my family line. And I wanted to stay in my family line for the next 3 generations. And I only want them to get a pocket money and allowance and keep the principal growing so that it can continue to support future generations. You can see it could start from very simple to very complex. But that is a must. At least having a revocable living trust structure is a must for any Bay Area family that is distributing assets to the next generation. Once you have that established, having the conversation with your family. You explain to them why you do it this way. Why is Marcus getting the house, but Thomas is getting the business? Or why is Jane getting cash? You need to explain to them why you're doing things a certain way, because if you don't explain that, that's where after you're gone, they're going to start fighting. They're going to be very unhappy, even though the numbers might add up to be the same. They just don't understand the thinking behind it. So the conversation, once you have these decisions made, or even before you make these decisions, you can even have the conversation with them. That's the best way to keep the family together.
Nice. And I know you've got some unique ways, creative ways for legacy planning approaches that you've helped clients implement that went beyond your basic financial planning. You want to share that?
So when I work with clients, we don't just create documents, because documents will go stale and the family evolves. So every time you have a document, you create it and put it on the shelf, in a few years, the laws would have changed. And the family relationship, the in-laws might have changed, but the relationship got sour, or you got more grandkids. So what we do is we make sure we talk to our clients every year, and we make sure that the kids are involved in these conversations. So there is a stewardship program we help the clients maintain and make sure that the documents correspond with their current intent and the asset composition.
How do you do that, though? When you say that, I mean, is it like a yearly meeting? How does that work?
Yeah, so we meet annually. At least we meet annually. Some families, we might even meet more often if they need it. Because sometimes as your life evolves, things can happen. You might be going through a phase that we are dealing with something more tricky. Like right now I have a client, Bob is retiring from his business. How do you make sure that the kids that are stepping in and the kids that are not in the business are feeling that this is fair? So then this is not a once a year meeting kind of a situation. But at the minimum, we maintain a relationship with them. So we know as the family evolves, things are starting to bubble up, and we know how to help them triage these issues.
So multi-generational planning. How can grandparents or parents legally structure their estate plans to benefit multiple generations? You've been touching on that while still passing down important values and life lessons. Is there anything additional you want to add to that?
So yes, of course you can leave it in your estate plan and say, I want to give Johnny a gift. I want to, all the grandkids get a gift. You can easily do that. You can also start an education fund. It's just for whoever goes to college can get money from this pot. You can also skip your kids, right? Sometimes maybe your kids' generation is doing well, but you want to make sure the grandkids' generation can do well. You can skip that generation and create a gift that is for benefiting the grandkids' generation. So there are different ways to do this to make sure that your wishes are honored. And it requires that vision discussion, right? We need to know exactly what's important to you deep down. Is it providing for education, or is it something else, or is it keeping the assets in the family? So understanding that ultimately what do you want to accomplish is really important before we put together any legal documents in place, because they're just boxes. We're creating different legal structure as different boxes. We need to know what needs to go inside of it first, and why. Why is it important to you?
I think this is a worthwhile interjection. I have a personal story about this. I'll try to keep it brief. My grandmother owned a property on which my parents ran a business. She passed away very unexpectedly when I was a teenager, and we all found out during the reading of her will that she left her half of this property to my sister and I instead of my parents. So now my parents were running a business on a property that their daughters half owned. They owned the other half from his father. And they had to start paying us rent to make this all legal. Their teenage daughters, to make this all legal. But the issue is my parents were so upset, not about being skipped because they were financially sound. They didn't understand why my grandmother did this and created all of this complexity in our family. Nobody needed this to happen. And they spent years questioning themselves. Did she not think we were going to steward the asset properly to get to the next generation? Did she not think we were capable? Like, it was probably just something her and her attorney came up with because she was close to the estate tax maximum, but nobody shared it with us. So for years, probably still, my parents were left wondering, like, her legacy became one of a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And I can't drill down the point enough. Open Pandora's box and talk to your kids and grandkids about your plans.
Yes, the worst thing you can do is you only talk to your attorneys. And then nobody else knows why you're doing what you're doing. It's so important that after you've made those decisions that you talk to your kids. Because it's about your legacy. They need to understand why you're doing it. This is a gift that you're blessing them with. And even better, you talk to them before you create those documents.
Because I know a lot of families don't, well, and even certain generations are more private. Like my parents were quite private. I think they had some secrets that I still don't know about, but, some people are more private. So this part might be hard, and I think we might get to that in a little bit, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud here.
There's a lot of things. AgeWave did a study a few years ago and found that only a third of boomers and their parents have had this conversation. Only 1/3. There's the successful third, probably.
Well, it's the same with when I'm in a consultation, helping somebody determine where they want to live, and now something's happened where they're in a crisis, and they assume that their adult children would know what their wishes were, but they've never had the conversation. So if nothing else, you're going to go home today with your nugget, communicate, right? Family communication.
Yes, I would also say that so we facilitate family meetings, we facilitate conversations with your kids. And if the dollar amount is something sensitive to you, you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about the dollar amounts. We can just explain the structure, because by the time they open up your estate plan and look at it, they will have to call the attorney and understand what's going on anyways. So having us in the room help you have that conversation. And if you don't want to talk about numbers, we don't have to talk about numbers.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So again, philanthropy, taking a little bit different direction. Philanthropy through estates, right? What legal frameworks work best for clients who want their charitable giving to have specific impact or direction long after they're gone?
There's so many ways to give. If you support causes, your estate plan is a great place to give. Because even just 1% of your net worth can do a lot for the charities. So there are common ways to give to charities through your estate plan. One is what technically we call a bequest. Basically, it's just a gift. When you're gone, take that whatever amount you say you want to give and give that amount to the charity. So that's an afterlife gift. That's one way to give it. Another way to give it is you can give it to your donor advised fund that Angela can talk more to you about. You can also give it through your IRAs, and there's so many ways. You can give it directly from your bank account as a beneficiary as well. We could also do something very creative, legal structure to do it. But the point is not to create a bunch of legal structure unless you need it. The time that you need legal structure to make a charitable gift is usually when you have appreciated assets. When you have, let's say you have a cabin in Tahoe and you are not going there anymore. You don't want to sell it and pay a lot of taxes. You would rather benefit charities at the end, but you also want to benefit yourself and your family in the meantime, you want to benefit everybody with appreciated assets except to pay taxes, that's a good time to use legal structure. But otherwise, if you just want to, when you're not here, give a gift, you can just simply name it in your estate plan, or you can name it in your insurance, or you can name it in your IRAs. There's so many other ways to do it.
All right, digital planning. I mean, so much of our lives have gone digital, right? How should we approach planning for digital assets and online accounts as part of our comprehensive legacy?
So with Google or Apple, with your Apple account and Google account, you can actually tell them, I have a legacy person. When I'm not here, they can access my account. You can set it up directly with the provider. With your online password, you can use something called, like on the internet, you can find like LastPass, these are online vault, basically, online vaults that you can save your online passwords in those places and then share access with your family members. So one example is LastPass. We use a proprietary software that we offer to our clients that they can save all of their private information. They can even store their social security card on there and share it with their family members. And it's bank level security. But you do need to think about all of your passwords, all of your, even your online photo albums. If you have online bank accounts that only you know that exist, you do have to make sure that your family knows. And you can create a list and then share that list with your family. Otherwise, nobody knows where to find your assets. You can have crypto wallet and you have a lot of money in there and nobody knows about it. And when my dad passed away, nobody knew what he had. And even though I pretended to be a hacker to hack into all his phones and computers, I couldn't find all of his accounts. So if you didn't write it down and give it to someone, nobody knows where to find it.
Angela, I think you've got a real life story. You may have shared this with our group in the past, but it's worth repeating.
Yeah, I think at We to Me, we talk about this where I had a scenario, a husband dies very unexpectedly. He's only 40. The widow is there in the hospital room, and when she finishes, vomiting, she sits up and she goes, he's got all these accounts on his phone. He's got Robinhood and Acorns and a crypto wallet, and I don't even know his phone password, the 4-digit PIN to get into his phone. And if you think about it, we do so much of our lives through our phone now. It's even, if somebody has your login information, but they don't have access to your phone, they can't pass that 2-factor text message thing. So they have to be able to get into your phone. So this poor woman grabs his phone, grabs his thumb, puts it on the phone, unlocks it, and changes the password right there after he's passed away. Just awful, awful stuff. And the password keepers that Yuki was talking about are really convenient because they keep all of your passwords in one place, and you only have to write down one password that lets people into everything else, which I think is really great. And you should also update those and then rewrite it down in your will book or wherever you're keeping that for everybody, along with any new phone passwords that you have.
Got it. Okay, Angela. Carrying on with financial advice, aligning investments with the values. How do you help clients ensure their investment portfolios reflect their personal values while still meeting their financial needs?
Gosh, there are so many options. When I first started doing this, you had a stock or a bond, and mutual funds were new on the scene. And no one had ever heard of, social impact investing. So I would say, best practices do exist in all of investing, but you have to overlay that with yourself, your life, your values. And the first place I would start with that is your risk tolerance. And now people come into my office and they say, what the hell is a risk tolerance? I've never done this before. Like, My husband did this my whole life. Now I'm stuck with it, and that's why I'm here. Can you please tell me what my risk tolerance is? So essentially, what we do is we have conversations about your decision making in other areas of your life. And you talk to me about, the way that you do things. And so you may be a person who we would call you risk averse. You don't take chances. You'll take the guaranteed smaller return over the possible larger return with a lot of up and down. You don't buy and sell businesses willy-nilly, right? And so in that case, we would tailor your investments to be much more what we call conservative. You'd use more fixed things. Or maybe, you're a real risk taker, but you're 85 and typically your portfolio wouldn't be full of stocks, but you get it. You understand the stock market and you're excited to keep growing your wealth. So even though there's a best practice around how we would design a portfolio for an 85-year-old, your values get to matter. And there's so much that we can do. So going a layer deeper beyond whether we're risky or more conservative is all of the little things that you care about, you can now tailor your investments. You might hear it called impact investing or socially responsible investing or ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And it's a way that you can tailor, let's say, you're really into the environment, you're an environmentalist, and you don't want to invest your assets in companies that pollute the environment. You can now totally exclude those. What's interesting about this is that companies that are considered ESG, environmental, social, governance, and I'll just define that. Environmental is pretty obvious. Social are, a good example of that is a company that doesn't use sweatshops. They're good for their community. And then governance often refers to diverse boards. It's well known that boards with women and minorities do better. And so these companies tend to perform similar or better than their counterpoints over the medium and long term because they are less exposed to regulatory issues. Those more diverse boards contribute to profits. And so, there's a reduced volatility. That word just means, the up and down in your portfolio is the volatility. It reduces all of that because of the way they manage the companies. So we don't have to be afraid of investing to our values and excluding, a weapons maker, if you will, because we can still get the return in our portfolios today.
Nice. Lifetime giving strategies. What financial approaches allow boomers and seniors to support causes they care about during their lifetime while maintaining their financial security? Didn't we just answer that?
So Yuki did answer this. I'll just add to it a bit, which is we all kind of want to be the hero in our community and in our family. That's really normal, right? And we want to give a lot. But we have to take care of ourselves first. So the thing I want to add to that is work with your advisor to ensure that you have it to give. Because the last thing that you want to do is be a burden on either your community or your children because we gave away, too much in the beginning. Are there any other, let's see. Yeah, you could use buckets. Like this is my bucket for charity and this is my bucket for my life. And as long as my life bucket stays full enough, then I'm good to give whatever I want out of the charity bucket. Maybe you make too much money and you don't get to deduct your direct charitable contributions. So you divert your required minimum distributions from your IRA there, and you don't pay any tax on that distribution. Or maybe you've got a chunk of cash, like you got $1 million in your trust, and you've got a big tax problem. Maybe you, sold a business or a property this year. There's actually a tool you can use where you could put that $1 million into a trust, deduct a lot of it, and then live off of the income that that trust produces for your whole life. And when you pass away, a charity takes that trust on. So it's a way to get a current tax deduction and income. You still need that money, but then it goes to a charity when you pass away.
That charitable remainder trust?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. See, I've learned.
Get it.
I've learned with you guys. I've learned along with you guys. So here's a question for you. What is the right amount of money that I should leave my kids?
$2,338,005.
Perfect. Thank you.
The lawyer answer, it depends on so many factors. How much do you have? What role do you want it to play in your kid's life? And I think we have all of these, the Warren Buffetts of the world coming out there telling you that money inherently ruins children and that we should leave them enough so they can do anything, but not so much that they can do nothing. And we've all just adopted this because he's rich and he's smart, and so I should just do what he says I should do. It is not a fact that money ruins children. If we can teach them how to be a steward of that wealth instead of a waiter. You ask a kid, what do you do for a living? I'm a waiter, waiting for my inheritance. Nobody wants that kid to be their kid. But I would say on the flip side of that, we talked about how you don't have to share amounts of money with your children. We should at least give them an idea of the tax bracket they're going to be in, or more importantly, the roles and responsibilities that they're going to have to fulfill. I've got name changed, but I've got clients with a son named Jeffrey. And Jeffrey kind of struggled to get through CSU East Bay, got a degree in marketing. Meanwhile, my client was working for a tech company, putting all of his money into the stock plan. Never put a dime in the 401k. I do not advise doing this. But when he retired, that company popped. And suddenly he had $22 million. Jeffrey's 27 years old, still trying to get his marketing degree. But Jeffrey's life has fundamentally changed as a result of this. This isn't inheriting $2 million. Jeffrey never has to work again. But their perspective is, if we tell Jeffrey about this, he's going to go off the rails. He's going to become that waiter. So they elect to keep, the middle class conversation going. Really sadly, they pass away when Jeffrey's only 30. They were not healthy people. And Jeffrey inherits $22 million without ever knowing he had this money. What do you think Jeffrey did next? Absolute house in Tahoe. He had a house in Black Hawk, a boat, a snow. He blew it. He ended up in legal hot water because he was partying all the time. And so this is an extreme example, but when we let them just believe they're middle class and hope they'll develop those skills, it doesn't work. We have to be intentional. So whatever amount of money you're giving your kids, help them, or you, be intentional to help them understand what they're going to have to do with that money. So you could say something like, well, there's a good amount of money. People, your friends might start coming around, knocking on the door when you inherit this money. So, kiddo, let's talk about what we have to do to keep you safe.
I was, my family and I were at North Star in Lake Tahoe. And we were coming in from, I think we had hot chocolate at the Ritz or something. And we were walking down the hall to get on the gondola to go down to our car. And I heard these three boys talking in the hall. And that's what they were talking about. They said, yeah, I'm waiting for my inheritance.
He actually said it.
So the one guy said, well, what are you doing? He goes, nothing. I'm just waiting for the inheritance.
Yeah.
So, and we walked by and I was thinking, that's so sad. That's just so sad. And I thought of all the things you just said, the lack of communication, and he's not going to have the direction or know why or what was important to his parents. But geez Louise.
You have some more questions where I get to talk more about how to avoid the waiter kid.
I mean, on one hand you think must be nice, but on the other hand it's actually quite sad.
It really is, because, our vocation is, for most of us, our fulfillment. And when somebody doesn't have that kind of thrust upon them because they have to survive, they lose that fulfillment. It happens a lot. Some of you might remember when you retired, you're kind of looking around like, well, now what am I going to do? And so if somebody doesn't have to work, we have to give them other opportunities for fulfillment. And I have some more stuff on that in a minute.
So, okay, tax efficiency, right? Because we hate taxes, but we have to pay them. What strategies, Angela, do you recommend for minimizing our tax burdens so that more assets can be directed towards our legacy goals, right?
So I'll give you a couple of ideas. There's obviously so many complex things that you can do, but in the context of this conversation, one thing that you can do is hold assets in a way that they will step up in cost basis when you pass away. So let's say you own a home and with your spouse, and you own it joint tenants. When you pass away, your joint, or well, say, okay, Yuki and I are spouses, and sadly Yuki passes away, and her half of that joint tenancy, the cost basis, what we bought it for, gets a little, it's called a step up to the current market value when she dies. So if I were to turn around and sell our property, My cost basis would be what I paid for my half, and then Yuki stepped up half. But if we're married and we hold this in a trust instead, I get that step up on the full cost basis of the property. So now I can turn around and sell that property with no tax. Gives me a lot more options.
Huge difference.
Same thing, like I've seen a lot of couples hold their investment accounts in joint tenancy. If you have one of those accounts and you're married and your spouse is alive, talk to your advisor, but you should probably change it to community property with rights of survivorship or a trust account. Yuki talked about gifting appreciated securities. So my client with all that NVIDIA stock, instead of selling the stock, paying the capital gain, and donating the cash, all charities now, or churches too, will just accept the stock from you directly. You transfer it to them online, and when they sell the stock, because they're a charity, they don't pay any tax on it. And you probably got a deduction for what you sent over to that charity. You can also, if we're talking about estate taxes being the issue, you can pre-inherit some charities, just simply giving away money before you pass away so you don't get hit with that 55% estate tax. You can also, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, very carefully use life insurance to help your heirs cover the cost of taxes. So let's say there is no legal structure to get you out, you just have too much money, and there's going to be an estate tax. Darn, rough problems. But you know, it is an issue. No one wants to see half their estate go to the government. You can purchase a life insurance policy that's not part of your taxable estate that your heirs can use to pay that tax and still have the same amount of money at the end of the day. Couple of little ideas for you.
I like that. I like that. How do you help clients navigate the tension between leaving assets to the family and then supporting causes they care about and ensuring their own financial security?
It's a lot to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah. So this is actually kind of a simple answer. Again, it goes back to ensuring that, you know, your mask is on first, right? You have enough for your life, and not just for your current income needs, but the average person, the stats that I know, will spend about $450,000 at the end of their life on care. That's about 4 years in care. If you're in memory care, I'm guessing you guys talk about this a lot in this room, that could be $20,000 a month if you've got Parkinson's or something like that. And so some of you will spend more, some of you will spend less, but in my plans, I'm building in at least $450,000 at the end of the plan for this expense. So once you've worked with a good planner and you really know you've got, you know, all of those random things that could happen in your life, you've done your best to plan for them, then it becomes very obvious what you have to give. And that tension sort of dissolves. And then I think the last piece is what am I going to leave versus what am I going to give, right? Leave to my kids versus give to the charities. That's where your values really come into play, and that vision for your family's future life. If your vision is, my family is getting together to work at ARF, that's all they're doing, that's all we care about, then that might inform you to give more of your money to ARF than your kids if they don't share that vision. Right? Or they have an amazing compound and everybody travels year round. Okay, you better give your money to your kids instead of a charity.
So next generation financial education. What approaches have you found successful in helping your clients prepare the next generation to receive and responsibly manage this wealth?
Yes. So how do we avoid raising a Jeffrey?
Yes.
This question.
No waiter. No waiters.
Yes. Okay, so there's a lot here. I have an ebook guide that I could have Dayna send out to you that has every exercise really spelled out, and all of these communication tools very spelled out. It's free if you want it. So philanthropy is one of your best shots at avoiding the waiter syndrome. Because think about when we do philanthropy, we're getting outside of ourselves, and that can be a really fulfilling thing to do. It takes us away from our daily needs. It shows us how the other half live. It gives us perspective. Sometimes a kid that grows up with a silver spoon in their mouth has never left the resort area of Aruba and doesn't see how most of Aruba lives. You know, so having that perspective often helps us know, I don't need another Maserati. I could actually give this away. It also forces heirs to learn, because you have to evaluate charities to understand which ones you're going to give your money to. So what does this community need? How are the financials of the charity run? Is my money going to be wasted or well used? So in all of those processes, you're asking somebody to learn, to grow, to get out of themselves, and to experience the world in a real way, which a lot of, Lafayette kids don't get to do. Outside of philanthropy, we can use mentorship. We talked about, ways for grandparents to pass their legacy to their grandkids and the legal structure, but we can also mentor our grandkids. And I like, either the great uncle, aunt, or the grandparent to younger person relationship, because what do your kids do when you try to tell them something? Like the opposite. And so you're sitting here like, oh yeah, I'm going to, mentor my 50-year-old son on his finances. That doesn't, no, he's not going to listen to me. But they often will listen to their grandparents or a great aunt or another family member. Many of us gift annually up to the amount you can do it before there's taxes. It's called the estate tax exclusion. So we just give the 19 grand away to each kid, That's great. But you could add a layer of family legacy to that by asking them, hey kiddo, what are you going to do with the money? It could be that simple, or it could be as complex as come up with a plan, let's talk about your plan, then I'll give you the money, and then in a year we'll talk about how it went. And you're maybe not looking for investment success, but you're looking for the lessons. What did they learn? Did they hire a financial advisor and did it go well or not? Or did they pick a Bitcoin and it went down? You're just trying to help them understand how we make choices around money. We keep talking about how important communication is, but none of us are taught how to communicate in school. Right? Does anyone remember the lesson on active listening in school? No, because it didn't happen. And this is the root of so many problems in a family. If our mother gives us assets and there's a $50 difference, we are going to fight about it. We love each other so much today, but in our grief around mom, mental processes change. We lose a lot of our processing power when we're grieving. And so we're going to start fighting about it. But if we had a way to listen to each other built in, right? So there's an exercise where you can literally teach somebody how to actively listen. You're going to say a few sentences to me, then I'm going to say, what I heard you say was blah, 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 blah. Did I get that right? Is there more? Because most conflict is generated because somebody didn't feel heard. They weren't able to get something off their chest, to voice their issue. Most of the time when I'm talking to my partner about something that's bothering me, I don't want him to fix it. He comes in here with his solutions. He knows the answer to all of my problems. No, I just want to be heard. Just listen to me. You can teach things like empathy mapping or nonverbal communication exercises with your family, right? So imagine you're doing these, Yuki talked about annual family meetings. What is the content of these meetings? This is part of it. Getting people to talk to each other. Role playing, like my sister and I someday are going to have to manage a little portfolio of commercial properties. We have never been business partners. That's a totally different conversation than a sister conversation. And so if our parents forced us to role play some of this, all right, Angela, you want to sell and Jenny, you don't. Go, talk about it. Just imagine the learning that you would get in that conversation with your sister and with your parents right there and their wisdom to help, you know what, actually, the way you're thinking about that, what if you listen to her more, whatever, right?
But Angela, do you recommend that they have someone like you in the room to be the neutral third-party moderator of this conversation?
It's not required, but it does help if there are lingering issues in your family. If there's already a fracture, like you have two sons that don't speak to each other, it would be a good idea to either, before you all meet, get them in therapy together or have a trained facilitator at that meeting. And yeah, if you want the Cadillac option, you schedule a meeting with your kids, you get the facilitator to bring all of this to you, and you sit and enjoy the meeting. That's a pricey endeavor. That'll cost you at least $3,000, like bare minimum, for one meeting. And so instead, you can just start getting people together. Like, imagine your first meeting agenda might be something like, okay, we're going to come together in this way because we've got this wonderful blessing, these assets, and we don't want to waste them. We don't want to be shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves. So we're going to become stewards of these assets together as a family. First thing we're going to do is come up with a code of conduct for these meetings. Always have a code of conduct for your meetings. And you're not delivering it to them, they're helping you create it. Wherever possible, your heirs are helping you create this so that they will own it. You'll probably do some sort of icebreaker in the meeting, something fun to shift the energy. Remember in your business meetings how you had to tell 2 truths and a lie about yourself, and then someone had to figure out which one was the lie? Do that with your family. It's hilarious because you think you would know, but you don't always know which one's the lie. It's funny. And then you'll talk about your estate and roles and responsibilities, and then through the years, you'll start talking about a vision statement. You'll do the values exercise. You'll do it every time an in-law comes on, or a child is old enough to read and wants to get involved. You'll talk about your family history. We haven't really touched on that, but that's a really important piece, especially if the wealth was generated a generation ago. For my grandparents to have talked to me about that business that they started might have lit a fire in me to continue stewarding that business versus I'm going to sell it because it's an auto shop and I don't know what to do with it, But that history, like Jeffrey had no history to cling to when he had $22 million in his pocket. It's shown that having that and understanding where it came from makes us more careful in our decision making about it. Okay, let me stop there. That was a lot.
Well, I think, did you just answer the next question?
Probably, sorry.
About business transitioning? Kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, okay. Because, I wanted to ask business transitions. So for those of us who own a family business, what financial strategies ensure the business continues to reflect the values, right, after transition or sale?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of 2 separate things because we can use all the legal structure and financial, planning to get the business to the next generation in their hands with minimal taxes and drama. But yeah, the values of the business, the values of the founder are so much harder to pass down. And so I would say we often try to keep everything the same. But the truth is, Johnny just isn't going to do it the same way that his dad did. And that doesn't have to be worse. It's an evolution. So instead of trying to ignore the fact that Johnny's taking over and make him a clone of his father, instead we should embrace Johnny's uniqueness and what he brings to the business. So customers, we've still got, all the things you've loved about us for all these years, but now we have a fresh infusion via Johnny, and here's what makes him great. Don't ignore that piece.
I'm curious, how many people here have a family business? Okay, a handful of people that you're going to be transitioning to the next generation, possibly. We'll see. Yuki, do you have anything to add to that question?
So if you are passing on a business, I think just one thing to keep in mind is, think about what are your the boundaries, like what's a no-go for you. Those are rules. Like, I am not going to allow my commercial real estate to turn into bars, for example, right? Or something, or I don't want this to be extreme, like pot distilleries, right? Like if you have ground rules, set them up, and that would be part of what we call the governance, the rules for that business to be passed down.
And just ask if there's any additional advice that you would give attendees about revisiting and evolving their legacy plans as their life circumstances and values potentially shift over time. I know mine has, right? My husband and I felt a certain way when our kids were little, and now my kids are, nearing 30 and things are different, right? And maybe our values have changed. We've seen them grow into adults, and we need to make some tweaks to our plan. Anything that you'd want to add that we haven't covered? Because we've covered a lot.
I would say, in addition to just keeping your plan up to date, the one thing is really important is don't assume. Don't assume your kids know what you want to do. Like you have an heirloom ring, your grandmother gave you this jewelry. Don't assume that my two daughters are going to figure out who is going to get which piece. They won't. Whoever is not getting that piece that they want is going to be very bitter. So if there's anything very meaningful to you, it's going to be meaningful to them too.
That's great. Just that brothers and sisters that get along today don't always get along as business partners. And I hear a lot of people kind of brush this topic off like, oh, my kids get along great, it'll be fine. They haven't had that layer of grief attack their mind yet. When you're gone, it will impact them. And so what you can do today to help them get ready to be co-trustees or business partners, it goes a long way.
Well, that's a question that I have. Do you want, I think I know the answer to this, but do we want to name our 2 to 3 to 4 plus kids as co-trustees?
Don't do it.
Or do we want to name a single child, and how do we go about that?
Don't do co-trustees. Please don't do co-trustees. When you do co-trustees, they have to agree on everything. And when they don't agree on anything, nothing is moving forward. It's going to be very hard to unentangle this.
Yeah.
I give you an analogy. As a trustee, the trustee's job is to look at what you have and then execute on your wishes and divide it up. It's like someone at Christmas, in the kitchen doing all the cooking. They're not opening presents yet. The kids that are waiting in the living room, they are waiting to open presents. What you want to hand them is the presents, not the process of cooking. So to really help your kids have a good experience with opening the presents, if you can, don't have them be at the kitchen. You can have a fiduciary. You can hire a trustee to actually handle that work. Yes, there is a fee to it, but there is a fee to it for your kids to handle it. And the conflict that comes with it is not worth it. So my best advice is to have a fiduciary do it. If you have to have one of your kids do it, pick one. Don't have all of it. But help them understand why you pick one over the other. Otherwise, that would be another conflict.
Yeah.
Perfect. And things change too.
Yeah.
I had one daughter, don't tell her I'm saying this. I had one daughter named as trustee, or we did, and we've switched daughters now for various and sundry reasons. So things do change. You do want your documentation to be relooked at every once in a while because your life changes, maybe your values have changed, or maybe your trustees have changed and their circumstances have changed, right? So.